Let's talk facts.
Yes.
Let's talk facts. Finances, before we include the devil. How are you managing your finances? How are you making your money?
You might be actually the
You may actually be the devil.
Mm.
So, a number of people, they don't even need deliverance. They need to be delivered from themselves.
True. Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Dr. S.M. Chirisa podcast. Today, we're going to have an exquisite guest who is going to delve into things that will blow your mind. Ladies and gentlemen, today, please help me to welcome one and only Arthur Marara.
Doc, how are you doing?
I'm doing great.
Finally, it's good to be sitting down with you. Last time we were together, we were on stage, and I think this is quite priceless where you just get to sit one-on-one and just get to share thoughts.
Definitely. You know, when I thought of having the podcast, my team were discussing who should we have first. And everybody, there was a loud cry, Arthur Marara.
Thank you so much.
And welcome.
Thank you.
So, let's start this conversation going.
Yeah.
Arthur, we're going to discuss a couple of things. But one of the things that have intrigued me, we have spoken on platforms, many platforms, church platforms, commercial platforms, so many times together. And I've also seen you. And you are well known for these comments, these phrases.
Mm.
And while other people think that they're too straight or they're too punchy, I've always wondered how and where you get those from. Let's start there.
To my lines.
Mm-hmm.
You know what? We're living in a very dynamic society where pretty much the bulk of the work is just to observe and learn, and also being able to identify how best to communicate a particular message. I think you've experienced this, that when you're speaking, usually certain points go very in vernacular.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know what happens with English. At times, I so shika, but because I usually think in one's shika in a special way. Alternatively, Jivindi, which is one of my favorite these days.
Mm-hmm.
I think something amazing with our language, the vernacular language, and it has got a special way of connecting and also a special way of reaching out to people. But most importantly, I think the goal of communication is to be able to connect with the audience. Are we actually connecting? Are we also getting to reduce ourselves to the level where people can actually be able to understand us? But one of the most important things that I've noticed with people is at times direct, like what you do.
Mm-hmm.
Because a number of times we've been skating around serious issues, but I think when we prioritize real, blunt, honest conversations, number one, it's going to make you uncomfortable. Number two, perhaps you may not even like me or you.
Mm-hmm.
Like, follow my masterclass every day. You may actually be angry, but so I think it's really about getting people's attention, but most importantly, also getting people to a point where they get to critically think. That's one of the things that I think is very important.
But one of the things that I've seen and comments that I've got from one or two people that come to my masterclass, because I'm also a bit direct like that.
Yeah.
They feel and they say and comment that, oh, Doc is arrogant. You know, what did you say about that? Do you get such comments as well?
Can I tell you what? I've been told a lot of things. Number one, a motivational speaker. I think you've explained that. But I've always reminded people, I'm not a motivational speaker. You are not a motivational speaker because you've got a life outside speaking. I've got a life outside speaking. What we do, pretty much, this is us giving back.
Yes.
Because God has blessed us so much and God has given us the grace to be able to access certain things. And the best we can do is to share that experience. But at times, sharing that experience requires us to remove people from the zone which they're accustomed to, and we put them into a zone which they are not necessarily accustomed to. But one of the things, when you begin to tell people the reality that you're now used to, at times people think it's arrogance. Okay. So when you tell people about the life that you're living, and for someone it's still a dream, they actually think you're being arrogant. But a number of times, when you raise your level, you will realize that it's not arrogance to change a car. Mm-hmm. It's not arrogance to be in a double story. It's not arrogance to send your children to a particular school. It's not arrogance to eat in particular places. It's simply a new way of living your life. And that's upgrading your life, which is why one of the things that I actually encourage people is let's get to a level where we begin to work so hard such that we're not intimidated by success.
Wow. That's so good. So, you know, having talked about motivational speaking, you know, people make these jokes and you see them all over. That motivational speakers, they say that they started a kitchen with one grain of rice.
Yeah.
So, what is your main message when you speak, and can you explain the philosophy behind whenever you go on stage, when we are on the mic, what is your main message? What would you say? I know you speak on a number of topics, but what is your main message and what philosophy drives that?
I love something on personal growth. That's one of the things that I'm so passionate about. So when we've got this conversation, the idea is really to help people to grow.
Yes.
One of my philosophies is if you're not growing, you're dying. And that's as blunt as it comes. It's either growing or you're dying. So the real motivation is, I come from a very humble background. I lost my father when I was very young, raised by a single mother. And, you get to a level where you realize God has been so gracious.
Mm-hmm.
But also the journey has taught you a number of things. But also the journey plus experience plus exposure, meeting a lot of people, and also observing people in general. Then you realize, no, this is actually a message that I can actually share with people. I actually never thought I was going to be speaking. That was never one of the dreams that I ever had in my life. I just wanted to write one book. That's what I wanted to do.
Sure.
And little did I know that step of saying I want to write was actually going to open up a whole world altogether. So I started living my life as a lawyer. Now I'm still in that life, but I don't know how God does it, but my hobby has now been elevated more than my profession.
Wow.
So a number of times I have to remind people, no guys, I'm actually a lawyer. That's what I do full time.
True.
But when I go on stage, pretty much the goal is to help people improve, grow, develop yourself. And this is why we do what we do, just to be able to help people realize they can actually do more. And for me, I also think this is ministry. When we get to reach out to people, help people with tools, help people with ideas. We don't give people money and we don't promise people money. We give perspectives. Okay. We give idea. And most importantly, we challenge people who are hungry. What are we talking about just before we started with the recording? When we invite people to say, guys, come, learn.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you wouldn't marry or don't be like, seriously, you marry. So remember the masterclasses we do where we say people come just for free.
Yes, for free.
They're not for free to host them.
Oh, yeah, they're not.
Very expensive.
True.
Look at the things that you put in just to say you want to have people, we're going to have an overflow section, we're going to have all those things.
So the cost is
significant
in thousands.
But why would you part with such money? Because this is a higher ministry. This is also a way of saying to God, thank you for the grace for me to be where I am today. And I think that's one of the most exciting things where you begin to realize that your life is beginning to have an impact on other people's lives. And I think that's the highest form of living.
When you're talking, you just reminded me, when I was growing up, I used to stammer.
Yeah.
I still do stammer, but I used to stammer a lot.
Wow.
So that speaking was never one of my things. And because of stammering, you'll be so shy because everybody will be laughing. But right now, every day, every week, I think I speak to audiences 4 or 5 times.
That's amazing.
So it's amazing how negative things can become positive. But I just want to dive in and a bit deeper into, you have been speaking to diverse audiences.
Yeah.
What is the challenge that you have seen these audiences have in terms of what is it that they're looking for? Why do they call you? And what do the audience need to do for them to use what you are saying or what you are speaking? Because one of the things I think which is one of my biggest cries is I don't want my time to be wasted. I don't want my time that I come and prepare and I just speak and it just flies over people or people laugh. But at the end of the day,
they go back home the same.
They do not change.
So it's not just about time. We do not waste water in terms of towels that we're going to use to prepare to bath, come, speak.
Yes.
One of the things that I think is quite difficult is the reluctance to change.
Sure.
You've spoken on a particular topic for X number of times, but it's to encounter people doing the very same things. So changing is already a journey on its own. But I really think for you to be able to change is actually a decision that you need to make. Because you notice every time you're being invited to same audiences, more or less same topics, etc. But ultimately, if organizations are not ready to change, there's no amount of speaking that they can actually move them. But one of the things that I actually bring to audiences, I think we've noticed this. I'm a bit confrontational like that.
Mm-hmm.
You're like this. And I like also what you do, which is what separates your ministry. It's not an I receive type of ministry. Let's talk facts.
Yes.
Let's talk facts. Finances, before you include the devil. How are you managing your finances? How are you making your money?
You might be actually the
You may
the
actually
devil.
be the devil.
Mm.
So a number of people, they don't even need deliverance. They need to be delivered from themselves.
True.
So I think we need to invest more in direct, confrontational, where we confront the issues, the mindset, the reason why we're having these problems. Because a number of times you notice that we can pray to people over and over, but if we really don't address the underlying issues, I still think we're going to have a very big industry, very busy people speaking to and from people, but there's no real change. So my interest mainly when I'm going to organizations, I want to steer conversations and I want to create an atmosphere where people begin to interrogate, think, reflect about the quality of decisions that they're making and the impact it is actually having. Because I realize this is the point, I can never be able to change anyone, but I can inspire conversations that force people to reflect and say, do I want to change? And ultimately, when people get to that stage where they realize, I need to ask these questions and have this conversation, no matter how uncomfortable it is, I'm ready for change. So you realize you're a minister, Baba. You preach 50 times a year.
Yes, true.
And you eat times 2 because you do services. Mm-hmm. But when somebody is receiving messages as powerful as those messages, times 52, failing in that environment is a choice.
Okay.
So failure is in 2 ways. Number one, you can fail because you don't have information. Mm-hmm. But at a certain level, which is what I think failure in Orombe, is when you've got information and you do nothing about that information and you decide to fail. Now, I think that's one of the most painful things that you find in speaking with people. But most importantly, I've seen people who have taken action. And I think that's one of the most important things. People have attended master classes and say, wow, it changed my life. Wow. So you realize that one message someone is saying you're being arrogant, someone's life is being changed. Wow. It's all about what you take. It's about what you live. It's what you're actually coming with as your mind. What's your mission? Every time you go to learn, what's your mission? What are you going to use and what are you not going to use?
Well, my take-home message on this first segment is definitely that change is a choice. And you don't have to remain the same, especially if you've been given adequate information, more so for free. Join us after this break. So welcome back to the second segment. And let's carry on with one and only Arthur Marara. Welcome back.
Thank you so much, Doc.
So let's talk about your profession. Arthur, you are a lawyer.
Yeah.
What made you decide to be a lawyer?
Many people usually lie when they're saying, what made you first fight for justice, etc. For me, I think that was the only sensible profession that I could from what I was studying. Mm-hmm. So I'm first born in a family of 5. None of my family members had ever made it, even the extended family that far. Very little exposure, but because of the environment that you step into, we begin to have something called law. Like, oh, okay, what does it do? Representing people, etc. So that became the next goal. I wanted to get the maximum points that I can actually go and study law. Then later on, I actually fell in love with this. I think I can actually enjoy this. And I think that's why it's very important also to invest in mentorship. Okay. So that we can help people get to discover more of what they can do, especially at an early age. So yeah, I really, really enjoy my profession. It's quite an amazing profession. It has allowed me to meet people, help people, but most importantly, use law as an instrument of hope, where we can just get to help people realize, no, it's actually not the end of the world. Giving people different perspectives, helping business achieve their dreams, and most importantly, challenging and also encourage people who also want to be in this amazing profession. So I really, really enjoy that. But if I was not going to be a lawyer, what I wanted to be was a classroom teacher.
And you are now.
Up to now, I love it. I'm teaching at the University of Zimbabwe. Mm-hmm. So I love sharing ideas. That's one of the things that I really, really enjoy. So when I do speaking etc., this is pretty much the teaching in me that is really at play. But I really am so grateful to God for, number one, not allowing me to just pursue law, but also being able to discover many things that I can actually do. So law, people development, writing books, etc. So all of those things, I think they're now coming into one thing, which is people development.
Wow. You know, when you talk to doctors and you ask them, why did you go into and become a doctor?
Yeah.
All of them give you wonderful things.
Responses.
Said, I love people, I love what. But there's one young guy who just said, you know what, I got into medicine for the money.
And that's true.
And so at least he was honest.
Yeah.
And I just want to understand, maybe you can tell us maybe 3 or 4 lessons about life that you have learned while practicing your profession that my audience can relate to and can probably benefit. What have you seen? What life lessons from the cases in the courtrooms and the squabbles that you see within, you know, your law firms and all that? What key lessons and learnings that you think our audience, or even myself here, can actually learn?
Quite a number, because law has got many branches. Family law, which is one of the most contentious. Corporate law, which is the business side of things. Quite a number, but I'll just start with family. The importance of putting your life in order. That's one of the most important things that I've learned. A number of people, we work so hard and we don't get time to sit down with ourselves and ask questions like, what's next when I'm not there? We're not planning our estates. And
people don't want to plan
people
their
don't
death.
want.
They're scared of dying.
So you take funeral cover, but you don't write a will. So you're paying every day. So a number of people are not even paying for medical aid. They're paying for funeral cover. But they want long life, by the way. So why is it a number of people, we work so hard and we don't get time? So you realize from the practice of law that the biggest winners in any case of disorder are lawyers. Why? Because when you're surviving, people have to fight for inheritance. They need lawyers to facilitate that. So it's very important to put your life in order. And number two, if you don't put your life in order, you're going to give money to people with order. So there's someone who's really waiting for your mess. And someone is waiting for you to die in the state that you are in right now. So your disorder is business for someone with order. So estate planning for me is one of the most important things. And especially for children, never take things for granted. I've seen people lose things that they've worked just because they don't manage their assets. So at the family level, I really, really encourage that. Number two, I've seen the drastic effects of divorce firsthand, where people rush into marriage. I love the work you're doing in terms of that series on marriages. It's very, very important for people to make the right decisions when it comes to marriage, because divorce has got some drastic consequences. The last article from the HMH was talking about 50 cases on Thursday on the annual post roll. By the way, there can be more. So a majority of the times, many people, they are losing all the things that they've worked because of the wrong spouse. A wrong choice of a marriage partner can be very, very drastic. Then number three, for men, it's good that God has blessed you with the ability to be fertile. But it doesn't mean you need to be everywhere.
Go and multiply.
Yeah, go and multiply. You need to multiply in an orderly way. So one of the things that you notice is when a person dies, that's the moment you realize, no, this guy was actually working so hard behind the back. And majority of the times you find claims everywhere. So put your house in order. What the prophet Isaiah told to the king, put your house in order. You're not going to recover. You're going to die. So set your life in order. That's one of the biggest lessons that I've ever found. And the level of disorder is even scary, because even some prominent lawyers get to a stage where they die without wills. And I was speaking to lawyers, I'm like, guys, you make money from writing wills. Why is it that you don't even have a will? Just like a doctor who dies from addictions.
Smoking.
Yeah, smoking, alcohol abuse, etc. So that's when I realized information is no longer enough. It has to be applied information that is to result in transformation. Then from a business perspective, one of the things that I think is very important is also putting order in your business. What are you doing? How are you managing your cash flows, your revenue, etc.? Very, very important, because majority of the times you find businesses are being sued for rentals. Businesses are being sued for salaries. And next thing you ask, you are being sued for 40,000. Where were you?
All this time?
All this time when this amount was accumulating. What's your game plan? So majority of the times when we share ideas and so forth, this is really first-hand experience. And one of the things that I've learned as well, personal life lesson that I've seen from doing some of these cases, is the importance of being real, honest, what we talk about in terms of financial decisions. One of the interest cases I was doing last year was involving someone who was owing $24,000 in rent.
Wow.
True story. 24,000. Another one was in
How did you get there?
Yeah, another was in Carrick.
Was your rent 12,000?
The rent was actually 1,200.
You are kidding me.
For someone in Carrick. And the interesting part, that person, they actually lost a solar system, which was mounted on a rented property. And not only that, the house was also air-conditioned.
By him?
Yes, a rented house. That's when you realize, when you talk about being honest, being real, being authentic, and living within your means, these are some things that we're not just talking from a perspective that we want to excite people. We are saying peace of mind is a function of quality decisions. An interesting one, someone was being sued by Arthur International School for $30,000. I was in court sitting, and in order for $30,000 for school fees.
Why are you sending your kids there?
Why are you sending? So for me, the moment you actually have to think about a payment plan, chances are high that you're sending your child to a wrong school. I'm not saying it's bad school. I'm saying it's a wrong school.
For you, given your economic status
exactly
at that moment.
So the moment when you tell people about that, they think I'm attacking private schools. No, I'm not even comparing that school to a government school. I'm not. I'm just saying your personal realities.
We have to get real.
Be real.
Because you're pledging yourself with many sorrows, with stress.
Yeah.
Wow. Let's go into a bit of business.
Yeah.
I know you're a lawyer. What other business do you do?
So number one, I've actually professionalized my work.
Okay.
Yeah. So everything that you see me do, I actually do that.
Wow.
But besides that, I've got very interesting interest in real estate as well. That's one of the things that I actually do.
Wow.
Yeah. That's why I'm always talking about Marara just today.
Okay.
Because I love to see people build, and I usually want to help more people with home ownership. That's one of the things that I'm so keen on. But what I've done is I've professionalized my hobbies so that the hobbies that I do should actually become a revenue stream, which is what I also want to encourage people. Learn to develop hobbies that pay you.
Wow. And I can see you've got books here.
Yeah. So
is that revenue generating?
So again, it's a hobby. So the professional side of me is the lawyer. The other side of me is our hobbies. So when we do a masterclass, we invite people. That's a hobby.
Okay.
The difference is that it can be a paying hobby.
Okay.
That's the difference. So what I want to encourage people pretty much is learn to also develop hobbies that pay you. By hobbies that pay you, I'm not necessarily saying go and expect to be paid from golf, but I'm saying be able to develop networks that are going to be relevant for you in business. Be able to develop contacts that can develop into contracts. That's one thing that
contracts
actually,
that
can be developed into contracts.
Developed into
exactly
contracts. Wow.
Yeah. So you see, and that's one of the things that I think is very, very important as well, because
don't go to Dinema first.
It doesn't work. I can't say in Dinema face when we face Wacho is never given me a face of a contract.
Sure.
Because we constantly asking ourselves, Doc, would say, how have we exchanged money over the past 1 year?
Yes.
All right. What value have I created for you? Because business ultimately is very simple. It's being able to create value and be paid for value.
As we end this segment, you have to look at your network and your contacts. Are they giving you contracts? If not, join us in the next segment. So welcome back to our last segment. Arthur.
Yes, Doc.
Let me talk about something that I have heard you speak about.
Yeah.
Marriage. And I'm going to ask you questions. Are you married? When are you get married? And what things do you value? Because I've heard you speak about that. It's something that I'm intrigued about.
So, that conversation was actually after the main conversation. So the lady was hosting me, says, no, let's talk a bit about marriage. But this is pretty much what I've observed from doing a few of the cases of divorce. It's quite sad, which is why I think the biggest investment in any relationship has to always to start before the marriage itself. Because a number of times people are driven by love. And the argument is love is not enough. Because all the people who divorce at one point in time, they loved each other. So it's not enough. And secondly, the most important organ in any relationship has never been the heart. It's the brain.
Sure.
So you say, hey, I love you with all my heart. No, it's not enough. Because you see, a number of times people make emotional decisions where they're actually supposed to be making reasonable and rational decisions.
Wow.
And I was watching one of the conversations we're having about identify the things that connect you. What are the things that connect you in your relationship, in your marriage? And if people are able to actually follow those conversations, they're actually very, very useful. Because you see, excitement can drive you into marriage, but it's not excitement that keeps you in marriage, it's maturity.
Yeah.
So no, I've done my divorces from people who just stayed in marriage for 1 month.
Yeah.
Other ones, they couldn't even do a month. Others have done 20 years. Others have done 30. Others have done 40 years in marriage. So that's when I realized it's actually work. And I think that the work you're doing, conscientizing people is very, very important. And when you take into account that the moment you decide to stay together, have children, I think you need to have that discipline to also be able to make things work. Because the side effects of divorce, they're quite dire. They're quite serious. So every time when a couple walks into the office, they say they want to divorce, the first thing that I ask is, have you tried everything? Not that I don't want to do a divorce. By the way, divorce cases, they actually pay good money. But have you tried everything? But if you have tried everything and it can't work, that's when we have to do that. Sometimes divorce can be the best thing that can happen to other people because sometimes they've actually moved into dead institutions. Sure. So, but it's really sad, by the way, to actually say that. Yeah, it's quite an interesting area.
Yeah,
of
so
talk.
I usually say that, you fall in, you get married because you fall in love.
Yeah.
but you stay married because you are wise, or you use wisdom to stay in marriage. But you didn't answer my question.
No. Actually, those ones I don't answer on camera. Why? I try to protect family from social media.
No, that's good.
Yeah.
That's good. And we've got a way that we do our things on the Dr. Essentials podcast, which is we've got a question from our followers.
Yes.
And the question for the guest today is, what advice would you give to your 21-year-old self?
20-year-old self, you know what? I wish I was advising the 13-year-old self. I usually say if I'd started discovering myself earlier, I think I would have started earlier. I avoided public speaking at school because I thought I was not going to be good at speaking. I avoided debate because I never believed in myself. I literally had to be forced to do a writing competition. I didn't want because I never thought I was going to be able to do that. Miraculously, I managed to actually win. So the 21-year-old, I would encourage him to take the risk, a bit of Zvivinti, read more. You know, the moment I realized I actually need to stretch yourself, grow yourself, it was a later stage in my life. That's why I'm trying to also work so hard at a faster rate so that I can also do catch up, because I actually feel I'm really, really behind. So the 21-year-old, step out, get exposed, get mentorship early, be in the right environment where you can actually grow and start positioning yourself to the right people, start having the right conversations. And when in the right atmosphere, your true self can actually manifest and you can actually grow. And now one of the things that I'm so thankful to God for is the people that I've met, the conversation that we've had, they've actually made me a better person. Imagine what we do with the masterclasses. When we spend 2 hours, you speak, I speak. Usually you leave home with one good idea. And that's one good idea that's very important to actually shape your life, influence you to be a better person. So at 21, I'll invest much more in exposure, being in the right people who challenge me, people who are better than me, and people who are going somewhere.
As we wrap up this podcast, I can see some books.
Yeah.
Tell us about that.
All right. I think you know this book. No One Is Coming. I'm actually going to challenge you this year to write a few more books. You see this book
takes a lot of work.
It does. But no, I literally write this book for a Zimbabwean audience. Of course, it's global in terms of reach. But in Zim, we've always been waiting, hoping that something is going to happen and change our lives. The truth is, no one is actually coming to do this.
True.
And this is the story that we shared about the lepers. Why are we sitting here until we die? The power of taking personal responsibility.
I think that's the key word.
That's what we need, personal responsibility. And I love the work you're doing in terms of mental wellness, etc. But one of the most important things is to help people have mental toughness and mental strength and to realize you have no one to blame for where you are. And by the way, this is what I actually say, Doc. It's a sign of failure to blame another adult for your misery.
Yeah.
When you wake up every day and you're angry at people for why you are where you are, that's a sign of failure. But when you wake up every day, you look around you, you realize you have no one to blame. That's the starting point of growth. And that's a starting point for real transformation, where you realize I have no one to blame. You look in the mirror, not out to the window. Look yourself in the mirror and remind yourself no one is coming.
Wow.
I need to sort my affairs. I need to sort my things and take responsibility. That's what I'm actually talking about in terms of this book, No One Is Coming. Then the other one is Toys for Adults. This is pretty much what you always talk about, Doc, entrepreneurship. The best time to develop a business, especially if you're employed, is when you still have a job.
True.
I usually say, kwadautanga kuchengeta huku wadzingobasa hadzikuri huku zacho. Unoda kuti anga sodhoku huku hadzimbochinja. After 4 weeks, unotarisa so. So usually when you're under pressure, you also make it difficult for yourself to be successful.
Also make wrong decisions.
Yeah, make wrong decisions. But the moment you begin to position yourself, normalize the culture of entrepreneurship, which is something that we want more and more people to do. Let's go out there, try something, learn something, you have nothing to lose. Acquire a skill, something that you've never done. So Toys for Adults is a reminder that it's okay to have a salary, but learn to think beyond a salary. By the way, the word salary comes from the Latin word called salarium. That's the root word for salt allowance. So you see a number of people, that's why things are not balancing end of the month.
It's there to just make you
exactly. So
survive.
So one of the ways to famba uchitaura wega mutaundi Doc, ita one salary. Weta mabills akatowanda unofamba uchitaura wega. So in this environment, people need to develop multiple streams of income. But again, it's a skill. So we won't be able to finish all these things. That's why it's very important to attend master classes. It's important to do more follow-ups. Just learn the skills, because selling, marketing, business, it's a learnable art.
It's a skill.
It's a skill. You can learn it. So people usually say, can everyone be an entrepreneur? The answer is, are you ready to make that decision? If you are, learn it. None of us was born selling. None of us was born making money. But we go into an environment, realize, okay, this is the opportunity. This is what I can actually do with it. Alternatively, this is how I can develop and create an opportunity. So learn and be in an environment, in a place where you continuously learn. I think that's one of the greatest investments you can ever make.
Wow. This has been such a great conversation.
Thank you so much.
Arthur Marara,
it's been a great honor. Hey, thank you
so much.
And well done on the podcast. I'm so happy for you and looking forward to watching more of the interviews that you'll be doing on this podcast.
All right. Thank you, our viewers. This is what we have for you today. And continue watching Dr. S.M. Chirisa podcast. Please watch, like, share, and enjoy the viewing. Continue coming and view some more. Thank you.